little, piece by piece, I take back what's been stolen from me. Little by little, piece by piece, until I'm complete.
Thousands of people stood in line to see her. She was described as the ultimate femme fatale, an alluring temptress and cold-blooded killer. In life, Hazel Farris garnered little attention. In death, however, her mummified body was one of the most popular exhibits in the Southeast. For close to a century, her remains were displayed at public venues, from carnivals and sideshows, and political rallies and grand openings. She became a regular fixture at a small museum in Alabama, in the town where she met her demise. Many researchers and historians think her persona was a fabrication, but there may be new insights into the life of this mysterious mummified woman. This is the tragic story of the mummy of Hazel Farris, Alabama's macabre sleeping beauty. The legend starts with Hazel being born in the bluegrass state of Kentucky in 1880, orphaned at an early age. She married in her early 20s and settled in Louisville, Kentucky. Versions of the legend differ at this point. One version claims she and her husband were upstanding citizens, only rarely fighting, usually over money. Another version claims the couple were both alcoholics, given bouts of heavy drinking, wrought with violent bursts of fighting. Both accounts of the story claim that Hazel's troubles began when she wanted to buy a new hat, and a fight ensued over money. The legend says that she shot her husband with a single gunshot wound. She took the life of her husband on August 6 of 1905. When 3 deputies arrived to investigate, Hazel refused to be captured, and she shot them both one by one with her crack shot aim and trusty 6-shooter. When a 4th deputy arrived, she managed to shoot a finger off her hand, a finger that was conveniently missing from the mummy of Hazel Farris. This deputy, like the others, fell prey to Hazel's murderous skills. The townsfolk of Louisville were left with 5 dead men and Hazel Farris nowhere to be found. A $500 bounty was promptly offered for her whereabouts. Hazel Farris then flees to the state of Alabama, to the town of Bessemer, where she quietly guarded her dark secret. The story takes on different versions again at this point. One story says Hazel led a quiet life as a school teacher, while another version claims she was a prostitute who continued her habit of heavy drinking. Both accounts claim that poor Hazel suffered the ultimate betrayal by a man she had fallen in love with while living in Bessemer. When she confessed to her new beau that there was a $500 bounty on her head, her new lover promptly turned her over to the local authorities to claim the reward. Rather than face arrest and devastated by her lover's betrayal, Hazel locked herself away and drank a deadly cocktail of hard liquor and arsenic. Legend gives the date of her death as December 20th, 1906. For decades, the mixture of alcohol and arsenic in her body was touted as the reason Hazel's body turned dark and mummified rather than decomposing like a normal corpse. At some point, her body was taken to a local furniture store that was also a funeral parlor. This was not uncommon for furniture stores in that era, many of which sold caskets as well. Hazel's remains were held there while the next of kin was notified. After several days, no family came for poor Hazel. That's when the owner of the store noticed something remarkable about the beautiful red-haired young Hazel. Her skin was darkened and leathery, but she remained in a state of nearly perfect preservation. Word of the unnatural corpse spread quickly, and soon the morbidly curious came to get a glimpse of the macabre sight. With no family to claim her body, the proprietor of the store charged 10 cents per person to view her mummified body. This was not considered taboo or even odd in the early 20th century. Sideshows, freak shows, and even exhibits with human remains were common. Hundreds of people came to gawk and gaze at Hazel the Mummy, and even more came when they heard her scandalous story. That story became the legend of Hazel Farris. Hazel the Mummy remained on display at the furniture store in Bessemer and Tuscaloosa for almost a year. When carnival owner O.C. Brooks heard about Hazel the Mummy, he promptly set out to acquire Hazel the Beautiful, as he often called her. O.C. Brooks had a very successful 30-plus year career traveling with Hazel the Mummy. The Tennessean newspaper interviewed the Brooks family in 1984. It was in a Bessemer furniture store that O.C. Brooks first saw Hazel. How she arrived there remains a mystery, but coffins were usually built by furniture makers. He gave them $25 for her, said Luther. He then brought her back to Nashville and left her in my grandfather's garage on 45th Avenue North from 1906 through 1911. The first plays of O.C. Brooks's showed her was at the Princess Theater on Church Street. He showed her for 2 weeks to 18,000 people at 5 cents apiece. Then he traveled from Florida to New York, showing her in all the county fairs until 1946, when his health began to fail him. When O.C. Brooks passed away in 1950, Hazel was bequeathed to his young nephew, Luther Brooks, who was still in school. Upon his graduation in 1954, Luther toured with Hazel the Mummy each summer for 10 years with his own carnival, Hurricane Amusements. There is a persistent legend that Luther was bequeathed the mummy under the condition from his uncle that he only donate the proceeds from her exhibits to charity, and thus he helped build 5 churches. There is no proof that this is true, and Luther himself never made that claim in any of his interviews in the Tennessean newspaper. After his carnival days, Luther Brooks owned a printing business in Nashville and later owned an excavation business. He still traveled occasionally with Hazel for exhibits and events. In 1974, Hazel returned for an encore exhibit in Bessemer. This began a series of regular exhibits in the basement of the Bessemer Public Library to raise money for the Bessemer Hall of History Museum. The Birmingham Wiki page for Hazel Farris details the mummy's return to Alabama, as provided by the University of Alabama folklorist Elaine Katz. In 1974, researchers connected to the Bessemer Hall of History tracked down the earthly remains of one of the city's most storied legends. They negotiated with the Brooks family to bring Hazel down for a special exhibition in a vacant downtown building that October. Thousands of people paid 50 cents apiece to file by her casket. After the museum opened in the basement of the Bessemer Public Library, Hazel was brought back for additional exhibitions. Hazel was also brought to the Alabama State Fair and to the University of Alabama's Ferguson Center in 1975. Her final appearances at Bessemer took place in October 1994 and 1995. Brooks offered to donate the mummy to the museum, but the offer was declined. Hazel's mummy remained in the possession of the Brooks family descendants. In 2002, the National Geographic Channel featured Hazel the Mummy on their TV series The Mummy Roadshow. After exhaustive research, the producers of the documentary found no evidence to back up the claim that Hazel had murdered 5 men. Newsbreak contributor April Killian reported that she researched hundreds of old newspapers and also checked the Officer Down Memorial page website that keeps historic records for all U.S. law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty, going back to 1776. She found nothing even close to the story of the murders in Hazel's legend. The scandalous story was likely the fabrication of a clever businessman or carnival barker who knew how to draw a crowd. The researchers from the Mummy Roadshow claim they found no evidence of a Hazel Farris living in Kentucky, Tennessee, or Alabama during the years that coincided with the legend of the mummy. Many historians have also said that no evidence can be found that Hazel Farris was a real person living in the Birmingham-Bessemer area. Author April Killian disagrees. She found an historical evidence that may reveal the real-life Hazel Farris. She found a short newspaper article in the Birmingham News dated Thursday, March 30th, 1905, that reported a white woman named Hazel Farris was arrested and placed in the jail for petty larceny, or theft, with a prior arrest for violating the Sunday law. Birmingham and Bessemer are both in Jefferson County and use the same county jail. There was no age given for the woman named Hazel Farris who was arrested, but it's very possible that she was the real-life Hazel Farris. If Hazel was this young woman who already had a reputation for her trouble with the law, it's feasible that her crimes were simply greater exaggerated to add to the allure of her story after her death. The only problem with the article she found is with the year 1905. The legend of Hazel Farris places her in Kentucky in 1905. But again, there's no evidence that Hazel Farris was ever in Kentucky at all. Producers of the Mummy Roadshow had an autopsy performed on the mummy which debunked the legend that Hazel killed herself with arsenic. An article in the Tennessean in March 2002 quoted Ron Beckett, a professor who was allowed to study the remains. Though there was astronomically high levels of arsenic in her long hair, it was way too much to indicate that she drank it. She couldn't possibly have swallowed that much. Instead, the evidence points to her having been embalmed with and dipped in the arsenic, a common practice early last century until it started making the embalmers ill. The arsenic dip was also the reason her body was blackened and mummified. So, if not arsenic, what killed Hazel? The same autopsy revealed that Hazel died quietly of natural causes from pneumonia, as evidenced by blood clots in her pulmonary veins. The only correct fact associated with the fantastic story told at her exhibits was her age. Hazel Farris was indeed around 26 years old when she passed away. She also appeared to have given birth to a child in her short life. We will probably never know if her child survived or if there are living descendants of Hazel Farris. Upon the airing of the National Geographic documentary, the Brooks family made the decision to finally lay the body of Hazel Farris to rest. The descendants of Luther Brooks had no desire to exploit her any further. In 2002, the Brooks family had Hazel the mummy cremated at the Pettis Owen and Wood Funeral Home in Nashville. The body of the young woman known as Hazel Farris will never be exploited or gawked at by curious crowds again. Her ashes lie entombed in an undisclosed location somewhere in Madison, Tennessee. Unfortunately, April Killian found no mention of DNA tests being performed or even considered by the producers of the Mummy Roadshow, who handled the autopsy of the mummy, and currently DNA testing cannot be done on cremated remains. The true identity of the young woman who was Hazel the mummy may never be resolved. We may never know the story of her life, where she came from, or if she had a child that survived. Her legend, however, and the sideshow spectacle that toured as Mummy of Hazel Farris will always be an intriguing part of Alabama history. So what do you think about Hazel the mummy? Do you think that she really even was the actual Hazel Farris? Do you think that the legend was true about her and that maybe there's just no records for some reason? Or was this all just a big fabrication to lure in people to the sideshows and carnivals where people can make money off this poor woman's body? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you like stories like these and want more of them, please consider subscribing to the channel, hitting the like button, and leaving a comment, and sharing this video with other friends you have that might be interested in this story. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next one.